BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Martin Dowden and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Wednesday the 21st of May. We're going head to head as we start the Cup final build-up.
He goes for a goal and scores again! It's a brilliant finish from Dyson Maida. St Johnstone can't live with them. Can anyone live with them?
In the green corner is comedian and Celtic fan Marc Jennings. Facing his side on Saturday are the extremely unpredictable Aberdeen.
Low ball in. Oh, it's a brilliant submission to the net. Dabag looks at the linesman. The flag stays down and Dabag might well have won it for Aberdeen.
Representing them is fellow comedian Chris Forbes. So who's going to come out holding the cup? A treble for Rodgers or a season-end tonic for Thielen?
Shinnie, deflected goal! Equaliser for Aberdeen! Graham Shinnie! Here comes Celtic, it's a wonderful move by the way, and that is a wonderful goal! Maida gets his hat-trick!
We'll reflect on both clubs' seasons and get a fan's eye view of what's been happening.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast. I welcome Marc Jennings and Chris Forbes. Marc, I'll start with you. Life must be so easy as a Celtic fan. Nae bother, cup in the bag.
Well, I don't quite know about that, but it's certainly been a good season for Celtic, and it's just be a nice way to top it off would be to get another treble.
Chris, every Aberdeen fan, and I mean every Aberdeen fan I have spoken to, is sort of looking forward to this, but sort of not at the same time. How are you feeling?
Yeah, that's a pretty good description, I would say. I mean, it's always great to be in another final, but the thought of it, considering even just the last few fixtures against Celtic, the way the second half of this season has gone, we're clinging on to any potential thread of hope, though, looking around the world at other cup upsets. It's been a good year for underdogs, so I mean, I think, given the form of Aberdeen right now, it would be the biggest upset of all time. and yet there's a chance because it's a one-off game.
I love that you're looking around the world, around the globe for any sort of hope. I mean, look, you guys are comedians, so for me, and I don't mean it the way it sounds, but the biggest laugh is if you go back maybe to September, October, the idea that we all were believing Aberdeen might take the title. It's unbelievable.
It's mad. It's the season's been like it's like the Titanic voyage. Like we were just got off to this great start, just much heralded. We were just going to be this phenomenal kind of world-shattering thing. The fall-off has been unreal. We've kind of done the opposite of what Muhammad Ali did in the Rumble in the Jungle. You know, like rope-a-dope, where he just took a battering but then had one good round. We started off with a good round and then have just taken a battering.
I think that the annoying thing from a Celtic fan's point of view, right, is Rangers been so bad this year, and yet all the other teams have finished so far behind them still. And I feel like Hibs and Aberdeen almost swapped places, and if just one of these could have had a consistent run throughout the whole season, as opposed to Aberdeen starting strong and falling away, and then Hibs kind of coming back after having a bad start, like maybe one of these could have actually finished second.
If anything, the fall off from not just second but to third, then fourth and fifth has been more annoying. Like it felt like finishing third would have been like, well, that's a given, but then fourth went and then ended up. It's absolutely mad.
At least there's been some consistency in the sort of continual drop off in Aberdeen, so that's something to hold on to there. Celtic, I mean, how would you sum up the season that Celtic have had, Marc? Absolutely dominant over the course of it, I suppose.
Yeah, it'd be really difficult to sort of pick too many holes in it. I mean, won the league by a canter, on the cusp of another treble, made progress in Europe. I think the only sort of disappointment in the back half of the season has been the last couple of games against Rangers. Particularly the last one at Celtic Park when Ferguson came in. You would have wanted to see us do better there, and I think that does lead to kind of a few questions about what we do over the summer. Can we strengthen the squad? Can we convince Rodgers to stay if we can do that, all that type of thing. But overall, it has been a brilliant season for Celtic. Played a lot better as well, I think, than we did when Rodgers came in last year. And yeah, it's been a joy to watch at times. So yeah, not too much to moan about really.
Unusual for a football fan. Well, we do, or we think we know that Brendan Rodgers will definitely be here. He did say that to us not too long ago, 150%.
150%.
Then he upgraded a couple of weeks later, it was 200%. So you've got to imagine he'll be here at least next season. What do you think then for Celtic? You know, if you look beyond that game just now, what do they need to kick on next season and put people like Chris in even more depression when they come up against them?
I think there has been a big, like the games that I think it's been obvious what Celtic need has been the against Bayern in the second half, and then both of those Rangers games in 2025 when we've needed to change the game. And in all of those three games, the bench has looked pretty weak. That was a bit due to injuries and stuff in some of the games, but I think that while we've got a pretty strong kind of starting 11, there's definitely a few players that we need to bring in. I think our strength and depth isn't the best at the moment, and I think it's still kind of Ange's team. And I think Rodgers needs to bring in a few of his own players to freshen it up. It's maybe kind of come to its sort of natural end, like this sort of kind of core group that they've got there. So I think it's a case of Rodgers bringing in some of his own players. It also depends who leaves. Like somebody like Cameron Carter-Vickers going would be a big loss. We'd need to replace him. We still probably need a striker to replace Kyogo. And I reckon that Rodgers is probably still wanting maybe another midfielder, maybe even another winger. I don't know, but especially with Jota being out for a couple of months. But it's obviously, I can see Chris kind of laughing here. We've obviously got we've got an embarrassment of riches. Maybe in Scotland, but I think if Celtic want to kick on and make a dent in Europe again next season, and depending on what happens with Rangers, we need to strengthen from a position of strength, which Celtic have generally always been kind of bad at.
Yeah, and I suppose that what's happening at Rangers might have an influence in that as well. Chris, that sounded like a whole team Mark was lining up there, so presumably Aberdeen need two whole teams then to start challenging a bit more.
It's always great, the kind of disparity between the teams in the Scottish Premiership. He's talking about, we could really see our shortfallings there when we were up against Bayern Munich, and it's like, well, what do we need to be able to beat St Johnstone next season? It's it's quite comical, I suppose, in that regard. But we need an awful lot. I think it's easy to say, we just need to play like we played in the first 11 games. I think so much has changed since that momentous run. So I think we need to see what Big Jimmy can do. Certainly there's already folk, I guess, calling for his head, but I'd love to see him have at least another 3 to 6 months next season, of course, because there obviously was something there. I think he was just figured out quite quickly. So I think he needs to figure out how to adapt more. He's still new to the Scottish game, really. You can't, one season, we've seen the best and worst of him. So I think it's only fair to see what he can do with a couple more players brought in, certainly, and to see if he can adapt his tactics. He had kind of a particular way of playing, but I think in the Scottish game in particular, I think the players got bullied quite a lot. I've never seen a team anywhere be so consistently good in one half of football and shocking in the next half. So I think there is stuff there to build on, but yeah, certainly we need lots of new players. Mark talking about Celtic not having strength and depth. Well, yeah, I don't know what you'd call Aberdeen then.
I love this depth of analysis. We need lots of new players. That's it. Not specific positions, just new players.
Yeah, one from every row, please.
I was going to ask you about. Now I'm an outlier in Scottish football because I did ask Yimmy how you say his name, and it is Yimmy. So I've stuck with Yimmy rather than Jimmy. So I'll keep with that. Yimmy. Do you feel that fans are really turning against them, or maybe once the dust settles, they'll think, right, we had a lot of good moments here, and there is something there to build on?
Yeah, I think with anything in football in this day and age, you have to be careful not to go too much off of social media. Because if you listen to social media, then there's certainly a huge portion of the fan group that are already very, very unhappy with him. It's just kind of like that first 11 games was like a honeymoon period of a relationship. And it was just beautiful, and then it was like, oh, we got to know each other, and it was like really toxic, of falling apart. But I think, yeah, like you say, with hindsight, once the dust has settled, we'll say, what an incredible season. Entertainment-wise, I mean, you can't top it. What we achieved at that first couple of months was amazing. And then the kind of roller coaster ride of what followed, at the very least was exciting. So the inconsistency at least meant, well, game to game towards the end there, we never really knew what we were going to get. Thankfully, we did enough in the first 10, 11. I admit there was a stat that was getting shared around as well about, I think we managed to get more points in that first 10, 11 games than we did for the rest of the season, which is mad. And that is incredible. So I think for pure roller coaster unpredictability, it was at least an exciting season. But yeah, I think there's still more to come from Jimmy, which is definitely the way you pronounce his name. But I just think it's still amusing for most to call him Jimmy.
I'm going to stick with you, Chris, because I don't want you to leave this podcast recording feeling bad about life. So I want you to grasp the idea that Aberdeen will be holding the trophy. How do you think they can actually go about achieving that, if you do believe that at all?
Yeah, listen, for all the doom and gloom of the kind of build up to the final, it's not been the best preparation in terms of the last 4 games, but I'm an eternal optimist, and it is a cup final, so it's a one-off game. Anything can happen. As I say, everyone clinging on to the fact that you've had people like Palace winning a cup, Newcastle, Bologna over in Italy. It's absolutely achievable. All we need really is to Celtic to have the worst game ever and for us to have the best game ever. And I don't think that's too much to ask. I mean, I was at the cup final in 2017, and I really feel like we could have won that. And again, that would have been against the odds, I think. So absolutely anything can happen in a one-off game. So I'm going to take that optimistic, perhaps naively optimistic mindset into the final, but it is absolutely achievable. Hatate's out. Is that still the case? I mean, I'm trying to think of as many things as possible that are in our favour. But yeah, it can win. So even for being on here and any Aberdeen fans listening, I don't want to sound like I'm too down in our own team, because it can absolutely happen.
Mark, do you go into this game, like I suspect a lot of Celtic fans will, just thinking, as we said near the top, this is pretty much in the bag, or do you have genuine concerns of this might go wrong, if we don't do this right, Aberdeen might have a chance?
Oh, I've never get that confidence of just thinking we're absolutely going to win it, because like Chris says, anything can happen in a cup final. Also, the big thing for me is Aberdeen are kind of due one over Celtic in a cup final, because like it feels like, mentioned in 2017, it feels like there was a lot of years like since Rodgers was last there winning the trebles and that we beat Aberdeen quite a lot in finals. Even last season, the semi-final went to penalties. So I do feel like the law of averages is the big thing Aberdeen might have in their favour, is just that they're really due one. And the other thing I would say that does concern me has been the results against Rangers. Like the times in since the turn of the year, we've not really showed up for those kind of big games. So you do worry that if everybody has a bit of an off day, anything could happen. And obviously, like the semi-finals a good example of this. Like, because obviously we beat Aberdeen the other week with a second string, but St Johnstone had beat us in the cup, and then in the league, and then we went and beat them handily in the semi-final. So you just never know with these things. If Celtic play as well as they can, we should win easily, but it might just not happen. And Aberdeen have been so unpredictable this season that they might just have one more performance in the bag.
What do you think about the idea of Brendan Rodgers, how it was when he left, how it was when he returned, and now about to, or assuming they go on and take it, deliver another treble. I mean, it's that story within itself is pretty fascinating.
He is an absolute winner, and that's probably one of the biggest things that gives me confidence as well, is Rodgers does just know how to win. I was maybe in the minority of Celtic fans that I wasn't as kind of harsh on Rodgers as everyone seemed to be, or at least on social media did. I sort of got it. We're used to losing a lot of players to the Premier League, and it was just one of those ones. If someone is that successful at Celtic or Rangers, they're probably going to go down south at some point. And I was absolutely buzzing when he came back, because I just think he's an absolute world-class manager. And, he's probably a bit too good for Scotland, to be perfectly honest. But the fact that Celtic, have him is brilliant. And for me, again, I might be in the minority here, but when I look at going forward, since the European format has changed, there's no chance of any drop down if you qualify for the Champions League. A wee bit of me kind of wants us not to qualify for the Champions League maybe in the next season or two, because I do think Rodgers is the guy that could maybe get us back to a final. I would just love to get to another final, and so I would maybe risk not qualifying for the Champions League to try and have a run, and maybe similar to obviously Rangers in the last decade or so, getting to a few. I would just love to get to see Celtic in another European final, and I think if anyone's ever going to get us there, it's Brendan Rodgers.
So the headline I'm taking from that, Mark, is I don't want Celtic to qualify for the Champions League, says comedian Marc Jennings.
I'm sure that the Celtic board would not be too happy with that stance. I'm sure they would happily just, get the group stages every year, maybe make it through and bank the money. But I would like to, have a party in, Frankfurt or whatever the hell it is next year.
Wow, so
right,
funny.
okay.
Oh, but I hope we're not too successful. We're just too successful. Maybe we could just dial it down a notch.
Chris, right, I'm going to do a couple of quick ones. Favourite Scottish Cup memory? It's all about the Scottish Cup, so what stands out for you?
Oof, favourite memory? I mean, of all time, I guess... for me, from an Aberdeen point of view, it's tricky because we've had some great results and we've reached a lot of finals, semi-finals. But I mean, you're going all the way back to 1990. But I mean, I was 7 years old at the time when that team won it. So I guess it probably is my earliest memory of Aberdeen being successful and lifting a cup. They'd obviously been very successful in the 80s in general and won the cup a few times. But I was probably too young. So that 1990 final probably was my earliest memory of being like, hey, Aberdeen are great, and look, we've won a final. And then I just didn't realise it would be so barren for the next while. But, outside of Aberdeen, the Scottish Cup's great. I mean, yeah, there's loads of results. Obviously, we've had some terrible upsets in our history as well. For some reason, the Hibs final, when they won was that 2016? That sticks out in terms of another team winning it, just because I've got my best mate's a Hibs fan, and the whole 117, 114 year wait, them winning and he got a tattoo. I'm not above being able to be pleased for other fans and stories of the Scottish Cup. So I like that. I just hope that we can kind of write our own wee story this weekend.
Of course, your two comedy brothers, the Murrays, are Hibs fans as well, so that a wee bit of bias there.
Yeah.
Mark, have you got a standout memory?
I think similar to Chris, talking about your kind of early memories, for me it was the one where it's Henrik Larsson's last competitive game in the Scottish Cup final against Dunfermline. Celtic won 3-1 and he got a couple of goals, and that was a really magic moment. Had a really nice strip at that point, the away strip for Celtic. And other than that, I hasten to add, but that mentioned a few times already, but that 2017 Scottish Cup final, Tom Rogic going through invincible treble, that was that was quite the moment, to be fair. So yeah, I'm sorry to remind you of that again, Chris, but amazing.
Just take an Aberdeen fan, get him on the ground, give him a lip kick before the game. It's a nice memory. Okay, what do you think, Chris, is going to be key for Aberdeen to mount a challenge here?
I think they essentially have to do what they haven't done for the most part of the second half of the season, which is try not to concede early. And Tallene, I think he likes to play a certain way and has been really keen for Aberdeen to become this kind of more continental and attractive style playing team. But I begrudge saying it, but it is a cup final, so I want us to be in the game and have a chance. So I kind of feel like we need to park the bus, which is a horrible thing to say, but it's such a big occasion, playing at Hampden. If it's over by half time, there's nothing worse than that. You want to give it a chance. I think we really need to play well in the counter attack. You're looking at, you need someone like Nesbitt, Papagay. You need someone to just be that outlet and to perhaps get that kind of scrappy breakaway goal, little counter punch. But yeah, you just have to stay in the game. I just hope he can shut up shot. We can't really defend that well. And I think just because maybe Celtic have leaked a few goals towards the end of the season, you're thinking maybe, a set piece or a counter attack. But more than anything, I just hope we can stay in the game and give ourselves a chance. The big fear is that it's over before half time. That's what I've seen most Aberdeen fans saying. Like, if this is over early, it's so gut wrenching. We need to stay in the game, so just throwing everything at defending.
Chris with a real cry of confidence there. And Mark, what do you think is going to make the difference for Celtic?
I think it'll be interesting to see who Rodgers plays instead of Hatate, because he is out injured at the moment. And to be honest, I don't think he's had the strongest season personally. So it's going to be, I think, maybe one of Bernardo or McCowan potentially to come in. But really, I think it's going to be the front three for Celtic. So Dyson, of course, who's been probably a player of the season, was a bit off the boil last week against St Mirren, I thought. But if he steps up and plays well, usually he plays when the team plays well. He's playing well. Nicholas Kuhn on the other side, if he plays, it might be James Forrest after that goal last week as well, and then obviously Adam Eade up front and seeing if he can get a goal. If he even starts, maybe Rodgers will go for Dyson through the middle and then Kuhn and Forrest or something like that. But I think front three particularly just need to be on form and we should be okay.
Well. Oh, you coming in there, Chris, with something? You were.
Oh no, I just went. Oh, a front three. That's wow.
A sharp intake of breath at the options.
You mean the way Chris is talking, you wouldn't believe Aberdeen are allowed 11 players in this game.
I know. I was just about to wrap there because we're out of time, and I was the thing that came to my head was to say, Chris, remember there's two teams playing. Anyway, let's hope Aberdeen make a fight of it and make your day special, Chris. But that's all we've got time for. Many thanks to Marc Jennings and Chris Forbes, and thank you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Thanks very much for listening.
On BBC Sounds. From life aboard a Russian submarine to chairman of Hearts Football Club.
At this stage, he was the hero.
But as his controversial decisions escalated...
They said, we're going to sack George. And I'm going, you can't do this.
How did Vladimir Romanov go from Hearts saviour to a wanted man?
It caused a whole load of chaos and havoc.
Romanov, Tsar of Hearts. Listen now on BBC Sounds.